St. Simon Stock, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and the Scapular, separating history from tradition. Did the Virgin Mary really give St. Simon Stock the brown scapular? Or is the story more complicated than that? In this episode, we'll separate history from tradition, look at what the Church actually teaches, and see why the brown scapular still matters for Catholics today. St. Simon Stock. As is the case with many saints who lived hundreds of years ago, there's not a lot of historical information about St. Simon's life. What little is known about him comes mostly from medieval catalogues of saints and Carmelite prior generals. Details of these accounts are not always consistent with each other. Two 14th century necrologies mention him, testifying that he was a holy man and that he made a trip to Jerusalem, and also record miracles attributed to him after his death. Simon was born on May 16, 1165, in Aylesford in the county of Kent, England, because of which he is sometimes known as Simon Angelus. It is said that he was deeply devoted to God from a young age, and when he was 12, he left home to live as a hermit in order to dedicate himself to prayer and penance. Legend says that, while looking for shelter in the woods, he came across a mighty oak tree with a large hollow in its trunk and decided to take up residence there. He lived on a diet of water and plants as the earliest monks did, mainly consisting of wild apples, herbs, and roots. However, this odd legend of Simon living in a tree trunk shows up in much later accounts and popular biographies, not in the earliest references. It appears to be a later legend that developed around Simon's early life, probably to explain his surname Stock, which means tree trunk, and to portray him as an unusually austere hermit. While it is possible, in the sense that medieval hermits really did live in remote and unusual places, including wooded areas and cells, there is no solid historical evidence that Simon Stock specifically lived inside a hollow oak. The scholarly and Carmelite material available today treats the tree trunk episode as legend rather than established fact. That kind of folklore was common in medieval and post-medieval saint biographies, where memorable details were often added to reinforce holiness. After 20 years of living as a hermit in the wilderness, he decided to re-enter society, study theology, and become a priest. He traveled to the Holy Land as a young man, a fact that is supported by the earliest records. While there, he came upon an early community of Carmelites. The Carmelite order emerged from a loosely organized community of hermit pilgrims in Palestine, established in the 1100s at the Fountain of Elijah, on a sacred mountain in the Holy Land called Carmel, which means garden. The early Carmelites lived in separate cells or huts and observed vows of silence, seclusion, abstinence, and austerity. In the midst of their cells, the hermits built a chapel, which they dedicated to Mary, Mother of Jesus, as mistress of the place and as patroness. They became known as the Brothers of St. Mary of Mount Carmel. Thus, Carmel is deeply associated with both Elijah and Mary. The Carmelites were formalized by a rule of life in the early 13th century and transplanted to Europe under the pressure of the Crusades. Simon was strongly attracted to the Carmelites' austere and contemplative lifestyle and their deep devotion to the Virgin Mary. Legend says that Mary herself appeared to Simon and told him to join the Carmelites. He joined the order in 1212 and was sent to Oxford, England to complete his studies. In 1215, shortly after he returned to the Carmelites, he was appointed Vicar General. When the Saracens made it impossible for that group to stay in the Holy Land, they moved via Cyprus and Sicily to Europe, and eventually to England, sponsored by 2 English barons. Soon after, Simon was sent with the original group to make a foundation in Aylesford in Kent. Alternate sources say that he originally joined the Carmelites in England. The tradition that he joined the Carmelites in the Holy Land and traveled with them to England is the more commonly told story, but it rests on legend rather than documented history. The scholarly consensus is simply that very little is reliably known about his life before he appears in the record as a senior figure of the order in 1240s England. I'd just like to take a moment here to thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this content, there are 3 things you can do to help my channel grow. Like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification bell to be alerted whenever I release a new video. In 1247, he was elected Superior General of the Carmelites, making him the 5th or 6th man to hold that title since the order was founded. He was instrumental in establishing Carmelite communities in Paris, France, Bologna, Italy, and Cambridge and Oxford, England, and helped to change the order from a hermit community to an order of mendicant friars. Mendicant friars are members of certain Catholic religious orders who take vows of poverty and live by begging or charitable support rather than owning property. Friars usually live a more active life of going out into the world to preach and serve people, and are historically associated with orders like the Franciscans and Dominicans. Monks, on the other hand, typically live a more cloistered, stable life in a self-sustaining monastery, focused on prayer and community. Despite his advanced age, Simon Stock worked tirelessly at a time when the order was undergoing many trials and oppression, as it struggled to be accepted and tolerated by diocesan clergy and other religious orders. He obtained approval from Pope Innocent IV for the rule of the order that had been adapted to fit conditions in Europe. The vision of Our Lady of Mount Carmel and the scapular. During this time of hardship, the monks prayed fervently to the Blessed Virgin for her assistance. Simon begged Our Lady for a sign that would fortify and encourage the brothers. Tradition tells that on July 16, 1251, the Virgin Mary appeared to Simon, surrounded by angels, and told Simon to appeal to the Pope, and he would give them a solution to the problem. Simon did indeed apply to the Pope, and it is an historic fact that on January 13, 1252, at Perugia, Italy, Pope Innocent IV issued a papal letter of protection for the Carmelites. But another aspect of the vision was that Mother Mary handed Simon the brown scapular of the order and said to him, "Receive, my beloved son, this scapular of thy order. It is the special sign of my favor, which I have obtained for thee and for thy children of Mount Carmel. He who dies clothed with this habit shall be preserved from eternal fire. It is the badge of salvation, a shield in time of danger, and a pledge of special peace and protection." Long before it became a token of devotion, the scapular had humbler beginnings. It was a simple work apron worn by monks, made of 2 large panels of cloth draped front and back, joined across the shoulders by strips of fabric. Among the orders that wove the scapular into their identity were the Carmelites, whose first hermit members wore belted tunics and striped mantles. When they crossed into Europe in the 13th century and became a mendicant order of friars, they adopted a new habit: a brown belted tunic, a brown scapular, a hood, and a white mantle. Originally, Our Lady's promise was understood to mean that members of the Carmelite order who persevered in their vocation would be saved. As the Carmelites put down roots across Europe, lay people drawn to their spirituality joined affiliated confraternities, sodalities, and third orders, and wanted a visible sign of belonging. For a time, Carmelite lay affiliates wore the friar's white mantle or even the full habit. It was Giovanni Battista Rossi, prior general of the Carmelites from 1564 to 1578, who gave this devotion its now familiar shape, promoting to ordinary lay people the small brown scapular paired with Mary's promise of salvation for those who wore it. It became extremely popular as a sacramental, which is a sacred sign, action, or object instituted by the Church, whose purpose is to prepare individuals to receive grace and make everyday life holy. Devotion to the scapula spread quickly to Christians throughout the world. Popes bestowed indulgences upon it, and many miracles became associated with it. Simon Stock had a very long life, filled with many great accomplishments. He is considered the most celebrated of the Carmelite generals. He died on May 16, 1265, his birthday, while visiting a Carmelite monastery in Bordeaux, France. He was 100 years old. Following his death, many claim to have received miracles while visiting his tomb, and a local cult developed. As early as 1435, there was a liturgical office composed in his honor and recited in Bordeaux. While never officially canonized, Simon has been venerated as a saint by the Carmelites since 1564. His skull was transferred to the Carmelite Friary in Aylesford, England, in 1951. St. Simon Stock's feast day is May 16th. The story of Simon Stock's vision is the one most associated with the brown scapular. However, the first known reference to the vision does not occur until 150 years after Simon's death. The earliest surviving records of his life make no mention of his having had this vision. The history and regulations regarding the Carmelite habit do not mention the Virgin Mary giving them the scapular, nor do prominent Carmelite writers of the 14th century mention it. The account of the vision was challenged in 1653 from a scholar at the University of Paris. A Carmelite, John Cheron, responded by publishing what he claimed was a fragment of a letter by Simon's secretary, Peter Swanington, giving details of Simon's life, including the scapular vision. The letter was later proven to be a forgery. The apparition account is at the heart of the devotion for believers, while historians usually describe the scapular's development as a gradual process rather than a single moment. Today, even sympathetic Catholic sources, including the Carmelites themselves, note that the vision story is pious tradition rather than a firmly documented event. The Catholic Church's current official position is that the brown scapular devotion is approved and recommended, but the specific historical claim that Mary appeared to St. Simon Stock in 1251 is treated as small t tradition rather than definitively proven history. The Church supports the devotion's spiritual meaning without requiring Catholics to believe every detail of the vision as an article of faith. The scapular itself is a legitimate Catholic sacramental and remains widely encouraged. The promise attached to the scapular is understood in the Church as a call to live faithfully in grace, not as a mechanical guarantee of salvation. The Carmelite order encourages devotion to Mary, but states in their official literature that they are at one with official Church teaching on the subject. You can be a faithful Catholic and either accept the traditional apparition story or simply view it as a Carmelite tradition that supports a real and approved devotion. The Church's emphasis is on the spiritual practice and Marian devotion, not on forcing belief in the historical details. Devotionally, though, the apparition has been enormously important and remains central to how many Catholics understand the scapular's meaning. Over the years, the scapular drew skeptics who dismissed it as little more than a superstition promising a shortcut to heaven. The Catechism of the Catholic Church clarifies that sacramentals like the brown scapular do not confer grace the way the sacraments do, but rather, through the Church's prayer, prepare the soul to receive grace and cooperate with it. The feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel grew out of the Carmelite order's devotion to Mary and the prophet Elijah, who lived on the mountain. Over time, the feast became tied to Carmelite identity and the brown scapular tradition. The date of July 16th became associated with the feast because Carmelite tradition places St. Simon Stock's vision of Mary and the giving of the brown scapular on July 16, 1251. The feast itself was instituted in the late 14th century by the Carmelites. It was originally a Carmelite feast before being extended more broadly in the Church. It was gradually approved in different places, then extended to the Universal Latin Church in 1726 under Pope Benedict XIII. After Vatican II in the 1960s, the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, as well as that of St. Simon Stock, came under scrutiny due to historical uncertainties. Today, neither St. Simon Stock nor the brown scapular appear in the liturgies, even in the Carmelite proper. Because historians had long questioned whether St. Simon Stock had actually received the vision of Mary and the scapular, the Church was no longer willing to let those doubts go unaddressed in its official worship. The feast itself survived, but it is now observed as an optional memorial, no longer the solemn feast it once was. The scapular devotion that had been woven so tightly into its liturgy was quietly removed. Popular devotion, however, proved harder to reform than a calendar. Millions of Catholics around the world still mark July 16th with great affection, and the brown scapular remains one of the most widely worn Marian sacramentals in existence. The Church may have stepped back from the legend. The faithful, by and large, have not. On the 750th anniversary of the scapular, Pope John Paul II, who himself wore a scapular, told the Carmelite family that the scapular devotion was a treasure for the whole Church. The Vatican's Dicastery for Divine Worship states that the brown scapular is, quote, an external sign of the filial relationship established between the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother and Queen of Mount Carmel, and the faithful who entrust themselves totally to her protection, who have recourse to her maternal intercession, who are mindful of the primacy of the spiritual life and the need for prayer, end quote. How to wear the scapular. The scapular is made of 2 pieces of brown cloth joined by 2 straps or strings. One segment hangs on the wearer's chest and the other down the back, with the 2 strings overlapping each shoulder, which is where the name scapular comes from, meaning shoulder blade. It is not necessary for there to be any holy pictures or symbols on the cloth, although this became popular beginning in the 18th century. At one time, the scapular was required to be made of 100% wool, but this rule was discontinued. Sacramentals are usually blessed, but in the case of the scapular, a baptized Catholic is invested in the scapular by a priest who says these words: "Receive this scapular, a sign of your special relationship with Mary, the Mother of Jesus, whom you pledge to imitate. May it be a reminder to you of your dignity as a Christian in serving others and imitating Mary. Wear it as a sign of her protection and of belonging to the family of Carmel, voluntarily doing the will of God and devoting yourself to building a world true to His plan of community, justice, and peace. Scapular medals came into use in 1910. These have a picture of Jesus with His Sacred Heart on one side and Mary on the other. The medal is an acceptable substitute for the cloth scapular, but a person must be invested first with the cloth version. General graces and promises associated with the scapular. The protection and maternal intercession of Our Lady, especially at the hour of death. A sign of consecration to Mary and enrollment in the Carmelite family's spiritual benefits. Participation in the prayers, masses, and merits of the Carmelite order. Grace to persevere in virtue and avoid serious sin. Special assistance in purgatory, with Mary interceding for the soul's purification. The scapular is considered a visible sign of one's commitment to Mary's Immaculate Heart and an instrument of her grace. The most famous promise, known as the Sabbatine Privilege, is attributed to an alleged papal decree of Pope John XXII in 1322, which declared that Our Lady promised she would obtain, through her intercession, the grace of final perseverance and early release from purgatory on the first Saturday after death. However, the document cannot be verified. No original exists, and the earliest references to it appear roughly 2 centuries after it was allegedly issued. Moreover, the style and language of the document are inconsistent with 14th century papal writing. Most church historians and scholars consider it a pious forgery, likely fabricated in the 15th or 16th century to bolster scapular devotion. The Sabbatine Privilege was challenged almost from the moment it gained wide circulation. The University of Paris and various theologians attacked it, and the Congregation of Rites in 1613 took the notable step of forbidding preachers from publicly proclaiming the Saturday release promise as a certainty because its foundation was so shaky. To this day, the 1613 decree remains effectively in force. The specific promise of Saturday release from purgatory may not be preached as a guaranteed or certain fact. The Church tolerates the underlying pious belief that Mary intercedes in a special way for devoted scapular wearers after death, which is theologically reasonable. The devotion to the scapular itself remains fully approved and encouraged, but detached from the Sabbatine Privilege. The Carmelites themselves acknowledge the document's dubious authenticity and do not officially promote the Sabbatine Privilege as a verified historical or theological fact. Both the Church and Carmelite tradition emphasize that the scapular is not a magical charm. To benefit from its promises, the wearer should, 1. Be formally enrolled in the scapular by a priest or authorized person. 2. Wear it continuously, though it may be replaced by a scapular medal. 3. Live the spirit of the scapular, striving for conversion, devotion to Mary, and a life of prayer and chastity appropriate to one's state. Pope Pius XII summed it up well, calling the scapular a sign of consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. So, is the story of St. Simon Stock's vision history, legend, or something beautifully in between? Whether it unfolded exactly as tradition describes, or whether it grew and deepened through centuries of Carmelite prayer and devotion, the scapula remains a sign of shelter, Mary's motherly protection, and a love that walks with us all the way to eternity. Perhaps that is the deeper truth the legend has always been trying to tell us. Asking hard questions of our traditions is not a threat to faith, but a sign of its strength. When we look honestly at the story of St. Simon Stock and the scapular, what we find is not a faith that crumbles under examination, but one that has carried generations of believers through doubt, suffering, and death, and is sturdy enough to carry us too. We can look clearly at the history behind the scapular, acknowledge what is certain and what is legend, and come away not with less devotion, but with a more mature and grounded one. What we can say with confidence is this: the Church approves the devotion. The scapular has drawn countless souls closer to Mary and her Son, and Our Lady of Mount Carmel has been a mother to her people for 8 centuries. And I believe that is more than enough.